Formula One was back. After 5 weeks of silence, 5 weeks of upgrades, secret tests, private jets, team principal speeches, and driver drama, the engines finally fired up again in Miami. And within the very first 90 minutes of track action, the entire competitive order of 2026 was turned upside down. Charles Leclerc was fastest. Max Verstappen was second. Mercedes had power unit problems on both cars. And Lando Norris, the reigning world champion, had his fastest lap completely ruined by a slow Williams sitting in the middle of the track. Today, we are breaking down every single moment of FP1 at the 2026 Miami Grand Prix. Session phase by phase, team by team, story by story. Let's go. Before we get into the action, let's talk about why this particular free practice session was so different from any other FP1 of the season. First, the length. This was not a standard 60-minute session. The FIA made a special decision to extend FP1 at Miami to a full 90 minutes. Why? 3 reasons. 1. There had been a 5-week gap since the last race in Japan, caused by the cancellation of the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian rounds due to the conflict in the Middle East. Drivers and engineers needed time to shake off the rust. 2. The FIA had just introduced new rule refinements ahead of Miami, specifically around energy deployment regulations, and teams needed time to understand them on track. 3. Because Miami is a sprint weekend, this was the only practice session of the entire weekend. One shot, 90 minutes. That's it. So every single minute of this session was precious. And teams knew it. Second, the upgrades. An absolutely extraordinary number of new parts arrived in Miami. Ferrari brought 11 different upgrades, the highest of any team on the grid. McLaren brought 7. Red Bull brought significant aerodynamic changes, including their own version of the Macarena rotating rear wing. Williams, Alpine, Cadillac, and Haas all declared upgrades too. The only team Hat brought absolutely nothing new to Miami, Aston Martin. And as we will see, they paid for it. This was not a normal FP1. This was essentially the first real test of the 2026 car for most teams in actual competitive conditions. The data gathered in these 90 minutes would directly feed sprint qualifying later that same afternoon. The stakes could not have been higher. When the pit lane opened at 12 o'clock local time in Miami, the cars flooded out immediately. Most teams started on the hardest compound, the C3 hard tire, for exploratory installation laps. Track temperatures were already scorching, exceeding 50 degrees Celsius on the tarmac surface. By the 15-minute mark, 20 of the 22 cars had already appeared. The 2 missing? Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll of Aston Martin. Why? A power unit issue in the garage was keeping both cars at a complete standstill. In a 90-minute session that was the only practice of the weekend, missing the first 20 minutes is catastrophic. Aston Martin were already in serious trouble before a single meaningful lap had been completed. Out on track, Norris immediately jumped to the top with a 1 minute and 30.688 seconds on the hard compound, a full second quicker than the cars behind him. Verstappen was second. Leclerc and Hamilton were third and fourth. The Ferraris were looking comfortable from the opening minutes. But then, the first drama. Pierre Gasly, 13 minutes into the session, reported a very strange smell inside the cockpit of his Alpine on team radio. The team said they were investigating. And literally seconds later, on the other side of the garage, in the Mercedes camp, George Russell came on his own team radio with an even more alarming message. His turbo was making strange noises. He compared it to a steam train. He even did his best impression of a steam train sound to demonstrate exactly what he was hearing. Russell was immediately called into the pits. For the championship-leading Mercedes team, this was not the start anyone had planned. With the session settling into a rhythm around the 30-minute mark, the championship leader Kimi Antonelli took matters into his own hands. Running on hard tires, he set a 1 minute and 30.079 seconds to go to the top, showing that despite the chaos around him, Mercedes still had pace. Russell's return to the track after his turbo investigation did not last long. He was called straight back into the pits a second time, with the entire Mercedes team surrounding his car in the garage. He ended the session struggling badly, never finding the rhythm he needed. Meanwhile, Ferrari were quietly building. Leclerc came through the middle phase and clocked a 1 minute and 29.855 seconds on the harder compounds, before Hamilton also found time in the sister SF26 to go third. Both Ferrari drivers were still on the harder compound tires. The implication was clear: on softs, Ferrari's advantage would only grow. And here is where the technical story of FP1 became truly fascinating. Ferrari's Macarena Wing 2.0, the revolutionary rotating rear wing that had been tested privately at Monza just 10 days earlier, was running in full competitive conditions for the first time since the Chinese Grand Prix. And it was working. No reliability issues. No balance problems. Clean, consistent, exactly as the Monza data had suggested it would be. Meanwhile, Red Bull had their own rotating wing concept on the RB22, Verstappen running it lap after lap, gathering data on the upgrade they had first tested at Silverstone. Two teams, two Macarena-style wings, both working in Miami. The aerodynamic revolution was officially here. With 20 minutes remaining, a sudden lull fell over the circuit. Every car disappeared into the garages simultaneously. The hard tires came off. The soft tires went on. This was the qualifying simulation phase, the most important part of any FP1, and even more so here given this was the only practice session of the weekend. Leclerc was first of the frontrunners to put in a flying lap on the softs. He threaded a clean, precise lap through the tight, twisty Miami circuit layout and posted a 1 minute and 29.3 seconds, 0.3 of a second faster than anyone else. The Ferrari looked planted, controlled, and genuinely quick on the softest compound. Verstappen came through immediately after and slotted into second at 1 minute and 29.607 seconds. Red Bull in the top two. The upgrade package was clearly working. Despite complaining about downshift issues throughout the session, the Dutchman had delivered when it mattered. Then came the two biggest moments of the session. Lando Norris left the pit lane on soft tires looking rapid. Through sectors 1 and 2, he was genuinely on a lap that would have put him at or very near the top. Then, approaching the final hairpin at turn 17, he came upon Alex Albon's Williams, which was moving slowly through the corner, completely blocking the racing line. Norris had no choice but to take evasive action and run wide. His entire flying lap ruined in an instant. He ended up 7th overall, nearly 9/10 behind Leclerc. His true pace? Completely hidden. And then, Kimi Antonelli. The championship leader had been building towards a soft tire run all session. But before he could complete his flying lap, a power unit issue struck his Mercedes. The team could not resolve it in time. Antonelli never got his soft tire run. He ended the session 5th, classified behind both Mercedes drivers, despite leading the session comfortably on harder compounds just 30 minutes earlier. So what did 90 minutes of free practice in Miami actually tell us about the state of Formula One in 2026? Ferrari was the fastest package. 11 upgrades, Macarena wing running cleanly, Leclerc and Hamilton first and fourth. The Monza test data had transferred to the real world. That is enormous news for Ferrari. Red Bull showed genuine progress. Verstappen second, Isaac Hadjar ninth. The upgrade package is working. The car feels more together. For a team that was running near the back of the points just weeks ago, this is the most positive sign they have had all season. Mercedes was in genuine trouble. Power unit issues on both cars. Russell on track for less than half the session in usable condition. Antonelli denied a soft tire run. For the team leading both championships, Miami was already showing cracks. Norris was robbed. The reigning world champion showed the pace to fight at the very front all session long, and had absolutely nothing to show for it at the end. That frustration would be channeled perfectly in sprint qualifying just hours later. And Aston Martin? Dead last on the timing sheet, over 3.5 seconds off the pace, with both cars barely making it out of the garage. In a field of 22 cars, they were operating in a completely different category. FP1 set the scene perfectly. Ferrari fast. Mercedes worried. Red Bull improving. Norris furious and ready to explode. And within just a few hours of this session ending, in sprint qualifying, every single one of those stories played out exactly as the data suggested. If you want that full sprint qualifying breakdown, it is already up on this channel. Drop a like if you enjoyed this, subscribe if you are new, and tell me in the comments, were you surprised by Ferrari's pace in FP1? I will see you in the next one.